Family and fellow soldiers, I'm Professor Ed. This is the moment of truth. If you require proof of Bill Cosby's crimes, we need to talk about Cosby won't be a documentary for you. No, that wasn't a quote from Professor Black Truth. That wasn't a quote from any of the new voices of black media, like Mr. Harvey or Tarian Rain or Nicole's View. That's how the Hollywood Reporter described Kamau Bell's flight of fancy that he tries to call a documentary. I want you to think about that. That's what they actually wrote about him. If you require proof of Bill Cosby's crimes, this documentary won't be for you. Isn't that how you talk about fiction? You're not supposed to be talking that way about something that's supposed to be based in fact. That's how the Hollywood Reporter describes Kamau Bell's so-called documentary. Now, any media outlet, or even a person who considers themselves to be honest, moral, or ethical, would follow that sentence with, and that's why this pack of unsubstantiated gossip, rumors, and hearsay should be totally dismissed, and Kamau Bell should probably be flipping burgers somewhere. Who would watch 4 hours of accusations and realize that there's not a shred of evidence to back up any of it, and then would write a glowing review of said 4 hours of time wasted, saying, if you need proof, then this isn't for you? Who does that? The white media. That's who. I find it interesting, though, that the piece also said that W. Kamau Bell isn't exactly an investigative journalist. You're right, he's not a journalist at all. He's a failed comedian. And he isn't exactly a dirt-digging muckraker. No, but he is a butt-kissing bootlick. This is what they're saying about this guy. The white media is admitting, we know that there's nothing to it. There's no proof here. But just go ahead and believe it anyway. If you require proof of Cosby's crimes, we need to talk about Cosby won't be a documentary for you. Now, if this is supposed to be taken seriously as an indictment of Bill Cosby, this is going to be the truth about Bill Cosby. As soon as they write that sentence, that should have been the end of this so-called article right there, but it wasn't. Because before and after this sentence, the Hollywood Reporter talks about Kamau Bell's hit piece as if every vapid, empty word of it was gospel truth. The white media takes something that they admit has no proof to back it up, but just talks about Cosby as if there was all the proof in the world. If you want undeniable confirmation that Bill Cosby's a rapist, then watch this documentary. But if you require proof that he's guilty, this documentary isn't for you. Yeah, for the white media, that sounds about right. If you believe in small things like truth, honesty, and facts, this documentary isn't for you. And this was supposed to be a puff piece from the white media lauding Kamau Bell. This wasn't a critique or examination of his fiction. This was basically another white media ad masquerading as an article, so even they have to admit there's no proof here. Now, can you imagine the white media admitting that a particular subject or claim has absolutely no proof and then endorsing it vigorously anyway, like, say, the 2020 election or the pandemic or anything else? If Kamau Bell made a 4-hour documentary with a bunch of drug addicts, prostitutes, failed actresses, and professional clout chasers claiming that an alien got them pregnant with no proof whatsoever, would the Hollywood Reporter praise that drivel and dismiss the detractors with, well, if you require proof, then this isn't for you? They actually have the nerve to write that because even they know there's nothing here. But when you control the mass media, you can flood the airwaves with total falsehoods, and if you scream it loud enough, long enough, the people will start to believe it. Not all of them, of course, because some people will actually want to see proof, and when they realize there is none, they'll dismiss it as they should. But many people, in fact, most will believe it because most people are sheep. Most of them live their lives through a screen. A TV screen, telephone screen, computer screen, or even movie screen. And if the white media presents something to them, even if they know it's based on nothing, they'll still believe that it must basically be valid on some level or another, that there must be something to it, even though the white media themselves will tell you that there's no proof at all. That's called not thinking for yourself, and it's exactly what white supremacy relies on. If someone is going to use millions of dollars to put together a 4-hour fiction where you get a bunch of people making unsubstantiated claims about someone, claiming sexual assault against someone, defaming them and demonizing them, if you're going to tell people that somebody is a serial rapist, then at the very least, shouldn't it be true? Not under white supremacy. Now, what if someone were to make an accusation of sexual assault against Kamau Bell, and they don't have a lick of proof, but they have a white media company willing to give them money and a slot on broadcast TV to show these accusations? And what if Kamau Bell reached out to these people and said he wanted to tell his side? And what if they responded that it didn't seem right to them to have him on? They only wanted to talk to his accusers. And all of this being done without a single scintilla of proof. So no, I'm not done with this piece of garbage, not by a long shot.
But Professor Black Truth, you haven't seen his documentary, so how can you speak on it?
I want to see a documentary that talks to Cosby, even if it's only to attempt some half-baked ambush on the man, so long as he's allowed to have his say. This puff piece starts off with a quote from Kamau Bell saying, "Difficult conversations is kind of what I do." That's not true. For several days now, Bell has been called out by people demanding to know why he took part in yet another pointless Cosby hit piece when no one is talking to the alleged victims of Woody Allen, Matt Lauer, Les Moonves, or any of the white media moguls who have so far not been discussed, much less held to account. And that backlash, the persistent demand that he look into those white media executives, that's the reason why Bell's been so worried. See, that's a difficult conversation that he's desperate not to take part in, because it was those white media moguls who gave him the assignment of smearing Bill Cosby as a proxy for the black community. Kamau Dumbbell doesn't discuss that. He instead says there's already a documentary about Epstein. Well, as I pointed out to you on Sunday, there's been several documentaries about Cosby, not just one. And Bell himself admitted there were a number in the works when he was making his Cosby hit piece, and yet that didn't stop him from making it. He didn't hide behind, well, what do we need another Cosby documentary for? Why? There's other documentaries being made right now. Why? We keep getting calls from people who are asking, are you part of this other Cosby documentary? No, we're not part of that. He didn't hide behind that as a reason not to make the Bill Cosby documentary. He didn't say, oh, this has already been overexposed and overcovered. We have no new angle. He said, no, I need to get in here too. Sounding just like Tyrannosaurus Burke when she said, why is it my job to go after white men? Yeah, as soon as you tell these bootlegs, hey, if you're really interested in talking truth to power, and you really want to make sure that everyone's held to account, then why don't you deal with the people who actually have real power? You know, the ones who actually get away with it, as opposed to going after people who all you got to do is whisper against them and all hell rains down on them. Why don't you go after some hard targets? Because it's easy to go after R. Kelly. It's easy to go after Bill Cosby. Nobody's going to stand up for them. They have no power. They're black. Go ahead and try that with some white guys and show us that you actually are serious about challenging these power structures. You can't challenge a power structure unless you're challenging power. And black people don't represent the power in the society. But you see that the bootlegs, they all operate off of the same script. As soon as you start telling them, hey, we need to go looking over there at what white power is doing. Oh, why is it my job? That's not my job. He didn't go to CNN and say, why do I need to do a hit piece against Cosby? There's already a dozen of them. No, when it comes to attacking a black person, you can never do too much. But when it comes to even mentioning some white person with power, all of a sudden Kamau Bell hides behind the pathetic deflection that, well, some other people have already spoken about that guy, so I don't need to say anything. I won't. He knows exactly how ridiculous that dodge sounds, but it's all he's got. Dumbbell avoids difficult conversations. That's why the coward has been hiding in the network studios of the white media, only talking to the same bootlicks and white media liars who he knows aren't going to question what he's saying or call out his obvious falsehoods. They just let him say it and then move on to the next talking point. Oh, but having difficult conversations, that's what he says he does. Well, here's another difficult conversation Kamau the coward doesn't dare have.
But you didn't speak or reach out to Cosby's camp, and they commented and said that they're having a bigger statement tomorrow, but basically called this baseless and had problems with the fact that they didn't have any input, I guess, in this film.
I mean, Bill Cosby and his camp was very clear about where they stand on this, and this to me was about reckoning with the legacy and reckoning with what we can learn from this. And I think we have clips of Bill Cosby throughout to show what he thinks about these things and how he feels about these things. It didn't feel like if you're going to put the survivors in here, that you also did with Bill Cosby.
You heard it yourself. Cosby's representatives said they wanted to talk to Kamau Bell. They wanted to have a conversation with him about this documentary. And he said no. Merely talking to the man that he was talking about was so difficult for Kamau Bell, so hard for this mental midget to do, that he flat out refused to do it. Not my words, his. So much for difficult conversations is kind of what I do. Now, if talking to someone who you make unfounded, defamatory, slanderous accusations against is just too tough for him to do, can we afford to trust anything that he says? If you require proof of Bill Cosby's crimes, we need to talk about Cosby won't be a documentary for you. And they put proof in quotes, as if to say, if you require so-called proof, yeah, a bunch of unfounded hearsay from a bunch of thoughts and failed actresses and junkies and harlots, that's evidence. I mean, you can't argue with that. Even though their claims have been knocked down and proven to be unsubstantiated, I mean, you can't argue with the fact that their claims have been proven to be unsubstantiated. Just take their word for it anyway. We all know what a real documentary is. It's where filmmakers tackle some subject and they interview everyone involved. It's about interrogations and confrontation. Whether it's Michael Moore or whomever, whenever some crime has occurred or some government or corporate officials have gotten away with something or some issue has come up that the society is supposed to be grappling with, the documentarian goes and confronts people with questions, if for no other purpose than to see what they have to say for themselves. Kamau Bell declared openly that he refuses to do exactly that. And the white media doesn't say, this is like no documentary we've ever heard of. How can you call this a documentary? That's because they're working together. A documentary is supposed to look at a subject from as many angles as possible, because that's how you arrive at the truth. Now, when you make up your mind that you're going to ignore 90% of the evidence, in fact, you're just going to go ahead when you know that there's no proof of what you're saying whatsoever, that's not a conversation, it's an attack piece. And to the handful of Cosby haters out there, doesn't it strike you as just a little bit strange that Dumbbell spends 2 years to make a 4-hour hit piece that talks about Cosby's career and the man himself, but he makes it a point that he will not talk to Bill Cosby, not even for the sake of confronting him? Especially after the bogus illegal conviction got overturned by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Shouldn't Bill have been the first one running up in Cosby's face with a camera and a microphone saying, I got questions for you. How do you answer these accusations? Shouldn't he have been the first one to do so if what he's saying is on the money? If he thought that what he was saying was actually true, he should have been the first one running up in Cosby's face saying, oh, you may have gotten out of prison, but you're not getting out of answering these tough questions. And he acts as if, well, I didn't want to talk to Cosby, so I'm sure nobody else would either. Yeah, because he speaks for the audience. Or is he trying to think for the audience? He fails on both counts. The only reason that you wouldn't want to talk to Bill Cosby is if you're terrified of what he might say. You got your narrative, and the last thing you want is Bill Cosby to be spoiling it with the facts. This was no documentary at all. It was just a defamatory public service announcement against the black community. The white media accomplished their goal just by putting it out there. It's like what they say in politics. Well, even if what you're saying isn't factually true, you got to throw something back anyway. You don't just sit there letting them say so. You got to throw something back. The purpose is to be part of that steady drumbeat demonizing black men, because as long as we're arguing about the stupidity of yet another unfounded, unsubstantiated Cosby attack piece, what we're not doing is focusing on Matt Lauer or Les Moonves or any of the real sexual predators, such as the white media moguls who Kamau Bell gets his paycheck from. Just the day before yesterday, the former evil leader of CNN, Jeffrey Zucker, resigned after being forced to admit to a sexual, romantic affair with a CNN executive. And this while he was busy firing Chris Cuomo. Oh, the irony. Keep in mind, this is the same CNN that Kamau Bell works for. So since he worked for Jeff Zucker, and Kamau Bell is so hot and bothered about powerful men misusing their power to get sex from women, I'm sure that right now he's busy mounting another documentary about Jeff Zucker right now, right? I'm sure that he's only too eager to start looking into this one because it happened right under his nose at the company he works for. Why, I'm sure he just wants to ask all those tough questions, such as, who else has Jeff Zucker had romantic relations with at CNN or any of the other companies that Jeff Zucker worked at? Can we verify that all of those romantic relations were consensual? Jeff Zucker has been a high-powered media executive for a long time now, and most of the women that he's had contact with have been his subordinates. We just want to verify that no one was misusing their power. Kamau Bell ought to be the first one rushing to ask about that, because after all, as Kamau Bell put it, difficult conversations is kind of what I do. Yeah, but the same way that he wasn't interested in having any difficult conversations with Bill Cosby, I'm willing to bet there's not going to be any difficult conversations about Jeff Zucker and CNN coming up in Kamau Bell's immediate future or in his future at all. The documentary is supposed to look at all the information, then present it to the viewer and let them make of it what they will. Now, if you choose to make a documentary that's supposed to be an investigation, then you must look at all the information before you call yourself presenting your conclusion. In either case, what you cannot do is cherry pick what information you want to present and then only let a handful of pre-vetted people speak on camera, and the only reason that they're there is to reinforce your script. Then say that you're trying to promote a conversation. A conversation requires at least two parties. It also requires opposing viewpoints. When only one person is speaking, that's a monologue. When a group of people all express the same opinion, that's consensus. Neither one of those is a conversation. You can't call yourself intellectually honest when you do that. To have a documentary about two opposing accounts when there's no objective record of what happened, just she said, he said, then to exclude the subject of the documentary, that's propaganda. A real documentary starts off looking at a particular subject, looking at the information that's known, and going in the direction that the information leads. You collect and compile information from as many perspectives and sources as possible, and then you examine what's factual and actually able to be proven, as opposed to what simply is probable. And at the end, you present a conclusion based on the facts, the verifiable facts. Or at the very least, you have some sort of clarity at the end. Bell, being the useful idiot that he is, he does the exact opposite. He starts off with his faulty conclusion, with nothing to support it, by the way, no proof here. And instead of collecting information to support his conclusion, he realizes there is none, so he just gets a small handful of folks together who agree with his conclusion, and then he throws in his 2 cents. This is the very definition of confirmation bias. Bell doesn't care what actually happened. He has his white media narrative and he wants to push that narrative, but worse than that, he also demands that we don't have any other viewpoint or evidence other than his. Again, what kind of conversation is that? Bill doesn't want viewers, he wants a captive audience. This isn't about proving anything to anyone because he has no proof. It's like an incompetent and unqualified substitute teacher attempting to make the poor school kids in front of them believe whatever line of crap they're spouting. Facts be damned. Kamau Bell is one of the first to complain that people today are locking themselves away in ideological silos. The algorithms are making it where people only get a nonstop diet of views they already agree with. That people can spend all day, every day, only listening to other folks saying things they already believe, and that people have to get out of these silos. And what's his response to this culture of self-brainwashing? He puts together a hit piece against Cosby, declares that he only wants to hear from people who are accusing Cosby of something, and he doesn't want to hear from anyone who says the opposite. So his answer to the media silo is to create one of his own. Should I waste 4 hours of my life on the feeble didacticism of a bootlicking halfwit who tells me that he wants to brainwash his viewers with a cherry-picked story that excludes at least 4/5 of the information that the viewer actually needs to know? This is merely confirmation bias. If you want to believe the white media's lies about Cosby, then this nonsense is made to order. It will repeat the same worn-out, disproven accusations. It will have desperate bootlegs like Roly Poly Martin, Mark Lamont Schill, and others doing the black men are all rapists, black rape culture spiel. And if you're someone who wants to trash the black community in general, and black men in specific, then this is the kind of thing you like. But as the Hollywood Reporter no doubt reluctantly was forced to admit, if you're the kind of person who requires proof, then this documentary isn't for you. So that's my question. What kind of person are you? Are you someone who just believes whatever this or that stupid bootleg presents to you? Do you just believe whatever people say as long as the white media is saying is good enough for me? Or are you the kind of person who actually requires proof? And the white media is making it clear, if you're the kind of person who requires proof, there's something wrong with you. What do you need proof for? What Kamau Bell is doing is not merely dishonest, it's cowardly. It's a coward who goes after black people in this country. Black people have no power. That means they don't have the ability to punish you. And Kamau Bill knows that. It's cowardly to go after black people, which is why he's doing it. And that's the reason why there's not going to be any documentaries about Jeff Zucker, Les Moonves, or Matt Lauer. Not from Kamau Bill, there's not going to be. You ask him about Woody Allen and Jeffrey Epstein, he says, well, there's already documentaries about them. Yeah, because there haven't been enough about Bill Cosby. Now, the white media actually have the nerve to write that he, quote, knew the risks. Black people in this country have no power. Black people cannot deny dumbbell any job. You go criticizing a white icon, however, and all hell breaks loose. You would have legislators and pundits saying you need to be investigated, and the white media would be screaming at the top of their lungs that you have to separate the man from whatever misdeeds he was accused of. The white media has certainly done that with David Bowie and the facts that he committed statutory rape. Yeah, the same Daily Beast who was crowing about Kamau Bell and telling everybody that he knew the risks. Oh yeah, you're lauding him for his courage. The same Daily Beast who wants to dump all over Bill Cosby. Then you start asking them about, what about David Bowie? And well, David Bowie, I mean, but why are we speaking ill of the dead? We're just having difficult conversations, don't you know? Because you don't see the white media leading the charge to pull David Bowie's records. And did I mention it was the same Daily Beast who's carrying water for the lynching of Bill Cosby, who not so long ago were openly defending David Bowie? Oh, the hypocrisy is so real. There's plenty of difficult conversations to be had. But Kamau, the clown dumbbell, he doesn't want any part of those conversations. You see, this is all ethno-political theater. Bill tries to play the part of a stand-in for Black America. That's the reason why you see him always saying, oh, I believe in Cosby. Cosby motivated me to become, he inspired me to become a comedian. And I'm a child of Cosby. I'm a child of Cosby. What he's doing is he's basically himself as the spokesperson for Black people on this one. That's the part that he's trying to play in this little drama. He is going ahead and bestowing upon himself the title of the official spokesperson for all opinions of Black folks when it comes to Cosby. This supposedly he thinks to himself he's bestowing legitimacy on his nonsense. This is part of the propaganda. White supremacy sends in a bootlick to sanction and approve their anti-Black narrative, and the bootlick does this by claiming that he's part of Black folks, and why, as part of Black America, I'm qualified to speak on this nigger who needs to be taken down. Go ahead and destroy these Black people, violate their rights, and just ignore the vast majority of Black people who are protesting, because we all know it's for their own good. All of this child of Cosby crap Bill is spewing, that's his way of bestowing on himself the right to say, this is what Cosby means. And the white media will say, yeah, this Black guy over here is saying, hey, he's a child of Cosby. I mean, look, these are just unpleasant truths the Black community doesn't want to hear. White supremacy's favorite strategy is to have a closed loop of brainwashing going on. A white media outlet pays for some propaganda to be produced. They get one of their paid bootlicks to be the front man for it. They show the propaganda at a so-called film festival, which they own and control, whose movies are presented. Then the white media only talks about approved topics, and they show their propaganda on outlets that they control. They control every step of the process. So understand, when you're seeing these propaganda hit pieces, the documentary itself isn't the show. The show is the announcement for it, the promotion of it, the breathless white media coverage performing the, oh, we want to know about this. Everyone's talking about it. Oh, you should all get excited about it. That's part of the performance. That's part of the show. The premiere and the awards that they give as a way of certifying this is a work of academic and artistic legitimacy instead of the pure propaganda crap that it really is. That's all part of the show. That's the real show. It's the societal drama that the white media is putting on. The so-called documentary or hit piece, that's just simply the MacGuffin. Look it up. So don't be surprised when Kamau the Clown's character assassination piece gets nominated for an Oscar or gets some Golden Globe nominations. That's all part of the script too. The same white media who made this crap will give themselves awards for having produced it. And by doing this, they have insulated themselves from being acted upon by the people who they are targeting. This ain't about ratings. The fact that they put this out there, that's the point. Now, Kamau Bell himself has made it clear that promoting and pushing and presenting unsubstantiated falsehoods and hearsay that he has absolutely no proof of, that's good enough for him. My question is, should it be good enough for you? And I mean you personally. You got the white media telling you to your face, well, if you need proof of Cosby's crimes, there's something wrong with you. And this is the same white media who will tell you that, well, you got these cops who are gunning down black folks. So, well, do you have any proof? Well, all the proof hasn't come out yet. Yeah, it's all about the proof if a black person's been harmed by some white supremacist. But when you got a black person who's being accused, well, all of a sudden, proof doesn't matter. Proof is on vacation. You should just believe it, because we said so. Now, Kamau Bell and the white media have declared it openly. They are counting on you being the kind of person who doesn't need proof. Well, what do you call somebody who believes something with absolutely no proof? You call that person a fool. Well, at least we know the kind of person that this documentary actually is for. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: George Montgomery, Detroit Beauty Supply, Steve Mugisa, Sandra Bates, and Justin. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.